Farm for Profit Podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm for Profit Podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm for Profit Podcast.
And listeners, welcome back to the Farm for Profit Podcast. Corey and Tanner here today on a 4th of July episode.
So it's kind of a fun show.
We're going to have fun.
Happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday. I was like, who are you saying happy birthday to? It's not my birthday.
Happy birthday if it's your birthday, too.
That's right. Wouldn't that be the most awesome birthday?
It's always someone's birthday.
To have it around 4th of July. You get fireworks every year for your birthday.
Yeah. It's like old school Facebook days where you have a list of like 10 people having a birthday and you have to go say happy birthday to each one of them. Don't do that anymore. Don't do that.
Nobody does that
That's
anymore.
desperate.
But I tell you what, though, what everybody should do is make sure this episode is known that it is brought to you by Pattern Ag, predicting pest and pathogen risks in your fields. Don't gamble with your yields. Go to www.pattern.ag today.
Yeah, and don't gamble with your extremities when you're doing fireworks.
Fireworks, that's right.
Yep.
We're going to do something different today. This is going to be just Corey and I. We don't have another physical guest in studio. We don't have another live guest on recording. But we're going to bring you a dozen different guests because I'm going to reflect and share what I've found on TikTok. I know we talk about TikTok as a podcast platform that has really helped our audience grow, but there is a little bit more value to that than just watching our clips. In my opinion, I've been able to find and run across some things that have really helped motivate me and kind of give me a great perspective.
Right.
So my goal today is to share not only with Corey, but with you as the listeners, some of the key clips that I've saved and now compiled into an episode that we've got together.
And
but
full disclosure, I have not seen I mean, I might have seen them before, but
Sure.
I have not seen the list. This is the first time I've been handed them to them. I've not seen these, so I'm going to be organically reacting to these. It's like you're coming on a trip with me to the toilet.
That's right. He's gonna, 'cause that's where he opens the DMs that I sent him. Yes.
And it's going to be like 45 minutes later, and I'm not going to be able to walk standing up.
Feet are numb.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just going to fall right into the wall when I stand up.
And if you want to watch that happen, you got to go over to YouTube. All right. Great content on YouTube. Corey, I feel like the energy is starting to build. Now, I tell you one thing that's going to happen on YouTube is a lot of copyright infringements that go along with this episode, because not only are we going to play clips, but I'm going to try and also play some music in between. So there is not a downer at all during this episode. So we'll see if I get the first started here.
You have thought this way out, haven't you?
We've never done anything like this before. So we're going to try and have a little fun with this. So as we launch into this first clip, just put it into mind, a little perspective to kind of open your understanding of where we are headed with
So are they going to be able to see this on YouTube?
I don't know. I'm going to try. I'm going to see if we can get that done on YouTube.
So do you want me to describe it, or we're just going to listen to it?
We'll listen to it, and then we'll kind of react to what we've got.
Okay.
All right, listeners. Here we go. Here comes the first one.
This is some real shit that you all need to understand. If you want to be the best in whatever you do, you got to start acting differently than everybody else. If you want the nicest car, the nicest lifestyle, and the nicest partner, the best of everything comes with a price. It comes from grinding through those late nights. It comes from grinding through those early mornings and those exhausting days where your body is telling you to give up. Every day you are presented with two paths. One path leads to your true potential. It leads to your dreams and goals. And the other path is you staying the same. Most of you are stuck on the path of staying the same. Stop blaming everyone else and take responsibility.
Does that kind of set the tone for what we're going to try to do today?
Yeah, that's some hustle culture right there.
So here is the next one, and we'll kind of reflect a little bit on what you hear.
You stay in bed, if you stay on the couch, if you stay in your comfort zone, if you only do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, if you get up, if you grind, if you are relentless, if you work as hard as possible, when other people are slacking off, your life will be easy.
So as you think about football locker room, basketball locker room, remember that playlist that you had? It kind of helped get you up. And did you have one of those coaches that gave you a motivational speech?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? And you always left the room left the locker room feeling a little bit more fired up.
Oh, yeah. If you could get a halftime speech like that, I mean, it's worth at least 7 points.
That's right. I mean, so for me, I get to go to conferences across at least the state of Iowa and across the Midwest as far as it goes with banking. And it always seems like that lunch speaker, the midday, get you fired back up, is somebody that's inspirational or someone that has a really good story. So I'm hoping today we can kind of create a show that's full of clips that maybe if you're feeling down, maybe you feel like you just don't have the green light to go, you can come back to this episode and dive back in.
It's your midday motivational speaker podcast.
I think that would be kind of a good way to go about this. This next one's from Ed Milet, so I get to follow a little bit about him. He is obviously trying to motivate business people to do the most that they can within their business. But let's see what he says here about the difference between being successful and those that are not.
The difference between winning and losing in life and everything, and being a great mother and not, a great father and not, a great leader and not, wealthy and not, a big business and not, making a difference and not, is so small. It's almost too scary to talk about. And that small thing, all my life, I've been trying to figure out what's the thing? What's the separator? They read one book a month, they read one more. They do 30 minutes on the treadmill. Nope, they do 30 plus one more. They do 10 reps on the bench press. Nope, 10 reps, one more. When you set that standard, your entire life begins to shift and change.
One more.
One more.
It's so small, it's scary to talk about the difference.
You know what? I kind of look at this too. We're celebrating 4 years on the podcast. We literally have just been here doing one more. Let's just do another one next week. Let's go to 2 shows a week. Let's just do one more a week. And ultimately, it's put us in a category of being one of the most influential podcasts. And we're not saying this to brag. We're just saying that that's how easy it was. All we did was show up. And by showing up, we've got to meet some kick-ass people.
Yep.
We've got to interview some extremely influential guests. And we've got listeners that continue to point us in the direction of our next interviews to do one more.
Yeah.
If you think about that on the farm, Corey, what's one more?
Man. There's a lot of one mores.
Right.
I mean, it's getting up that hour early, getting your stuff done. Maybe so it's not business-wise, so you can go home an hour early and see your kids. Or, get that extra load in so then you can get fungicide on at a timely,
Right.
type of deal. There's a lot of examples that could be.
Just one more.
Yep.
Well, here's another thought, too. When we think about goal setting, we've talked about that a lot. How do you go about goals and how big do you set them?
Raise your standards. One of the most damaging things that any human can do is set low standards and then achieve those standards. I would rather you set your sights not on the moon, but on the stars, because in the process of shooting for the stars, you will hit the moon, guaranteed. But in the process of shooting for the moon, you might completely miss it and hit nothing.
I would say that we've done that quite a bit on the podcast,
Just
setting
shot.
some lofty goals.
And I would say on the other side of it, we've shot for the moon
Yeah.
because we didn't shoot high enough. But it's fascinating to me that when you look at what the byproduct of having large goals is still being great.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're shooting for 300 bushel corn and you get 260, you're allowed to be disappointed, but you're also not allowed to be disappointed for very long.
Right. Because others are probably going, man, how do they get 260?
Yeah. So it's neat to see the perspective that some of these clips that I've been saving here have really provided us. This next one is kind of talking about how do you know that you're on a successful path? How do you know what it feels like? Because is there an end? I mean, do you know at the end of the crop year, Corey, that you've been successful? It doesn't stop when the combine rolls out of the field, right?
No, it's a yearly deal. I mean, there is that sense of that crop year, that physical crop has been put up and put away.
Yep.
But now you got other stuff to do.
Yeah. So let's see what it feels like on the road to success.
Let me tell you what comes on the road to success. If recently, at any point in the last 12 months, you've experienced doubt, if you have a lot of fear or anxiety on the road you're on, or if you've experienced those emotions recently about what you're doing, You feeling like an imposter, like you have imposter syndrome, like nobody knows, I don't really know what I'm doing. You're on the road that I think you should be on, the right road, the road less traveled.
So is that like a fake it till you make it kind of a deal?
I was trying to, when he talks about imposter, that's hard because we faked it till we made it.
I would argue that we haven't made it. We're still faking it.
But that's harder to do in farming, right?
It is and isn't. I think there might be a lot of imposters out there.
Is that bad?
No.
As long as you follow it up with the hard work that it takes to actually get there.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So to do that, you have to be more than average.
Just want you to remember that average is the enemy. Success is your responsibility. And change can take place in an instant if you are willing to flip the switch.
Some more than 5.5 inches.
I knew there would be one. I did. I knew that there would be one in this. Success is your responsibility.
It is. It's no one else's. Yeah.
You can't wait for somebody else to make you successful. You can bring other people in to help you be successful. Because we know that this podcast hasn't been what it was if we didn't bring you in 3 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's being big enough to know that you're probably the biggest obstacle. Your mind is your biggest obstacle.
And that's actually a good point. That was something Kelly Garrett told us. That he's the most limiting factor to the high yields that he's got in his fields.
Yep.
It's tricky to think about that on perspective. The other thing that I think we've struggled with, that maybe you also struggle with in the field, is you've got lofty goals and you know you're the reason that success happens and you work really hard, but how do you still allow yourself to be okay? You know, so how aggressively do you work towards your next goal?
Aggressive patience is a concept where you work every single day as hard as you can towards your goal. But you also understand at the same time that it's going to take time. All right. And this is a concept that people get very confused about because you hear other people out there say patience. You got to be patient. You got to be patient. And people misinterpret that and think that that means that they can just chill and their goals will eventually happen. And that's just not the way it works. It's aggressive patience. It's executing day in. It's executing day out. It's executing for weeks, months, years.
That hits home quite a bit. I've had problems with patience myself, wanting to do the next big thing. But what he's saying, a lot of people just sit there and they think that just time is going to help cure it. Whereas, no, it's not that. It's the small things you do every day, the small gains that you don't see that eventually become large gains.
And my favorite part about this next clip is more that you're doing those small things every day. You're working hard at it, but if you love the pursuit, not the end goal, not the, hey, we landed this sponsor as part of the podcast, not the, hey, we got to travel and we're expenses paid to be at this conference. I mean, Commodity Classic, bucket list. Checked it off this last year. That's not the enjoyable end because we'd be done.
Right. Well, and quite frankly, we've learned that once that is achieved and it's done, it's actually one of the lowest of the lows.
Deflating.
Yeah. You got to have that next thing.
So here's what it's like to love the journey.
The man who loves walking will walk further than the man who loves the destination. And when you love the journey, the goals just happen. You hit milestones as a side effect because it doesn't matter. At that point, I don't care if I can lift this much weight or run this fast. I mean, that's cool, but I don't love it as much as I love the journey. I love the journey. What does the journey consist of? Sucking at something, failing, getting better, learning, start it over, do it again. When you fall in love with the journey, everything else takes care of itself.
That's good. It's probably why I don't run. I don't like running.
Yeah, that's it goes so much hand in hand with the process as to how we put this together, because it's hard when you have people around you that maybe get threatened by success. And it's very important to find people that love to see you being successful rather than those that get intimidated, feel inferior, and start to create issues that way. But here's an idea that might help some of us that are in that success category deal with maybe some outside pressures.
Dream big and protect those dreams. Not everybody wants to see you win. And the reality is, the bigger your dream, the more they want to shit on it. They're going to be so intimidated because you're going to have to change and become your higher self. You're going to have to become different. You're going to have more commitment. You're going to have to dedicate more time, and that means more time away from them. And that's why most people are like the crabs in a bucket. They want to pull you down and they want to hold you down because they don't want to see you thrive, because you are now going to have to disassociate from them. You better set big dreams. You better set big goals, and you better work like a fucking monster to chase those big dreams down and achieve them. Otherwise, you will have a lifetime of regret.
That is right on.
Is it not?
Right on. That was a big epitome of mine from the whole COVID 2020 experience of used to try to be a people pleaser and want to keep up with everyone's social life and all that. But then when that happened, and I got on the podcast, I started to see people that were upset about it for no reason. Why are you hating on success that has nothing that affects them?
Yeah, that's the wildest part, is when it doesn't affect them.
Right.
When it's not something that is ultimately going to jeopardize their livelihood.
Yeah, so either just don't care or cheer it on, because rising tide raises all ships. We all need to be successful.
So what if we've got listeners out there that are afraid of this happening? That are afraid of being successful?
Divorce them, the friends, or your so-called friends, or your supporters that aren't being very supportive, or they're talking behind your back and all that. Like, just cut them out. Yeah. You don't need that kind of negativity. It's going to feel weird at first, but I guarantee you're going to find better friends, or find the friends that support you, and you're going to be so much better off.
Or think about it with this perspective.
You should be afraid of taking risks and pursuing something meaningful. But you should be more afraid of staying where you are if it's making you miserable. The clock is ticking. And if you're miserable now and you change nothing, in 5 years you'll be much more miserable and you'll be a lot older.
Mr. Peterson.
Yeah.
I like his work.
He says that very clearly, because what's the risk that you have about continuing to not be happy? It's a pretty big risk.
Yeah. You're going to get to the point all of a sudden you're going to be old and you're going to look back and wish everything was different.
Yeah. And that's not going to be good. That's not going to be good at all, because once you do that, what's your story going to be? What's it look like if you don't change that?
Your hardships, your challenges, your situation will either be the reason you don't make it, or it will be the story you tell when you do make it. And you get to make that choice.
It's intense.
I feel like we could do that one again. It's again, you are in control.
Right.
Which is hard, because a lot of us want someone else just to help us out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get us into that. I mean, that's kind of the message that I'm hoping that we get out of this episode. I threw one kind of right here in the middle that hopefully just kind of, if you're getting over this and you don't think it applies to you, or you think it's all just good and well, let's see if this one wakes you up a little bit as far as this goes.
You've made no progress. None. Get back to fucking work. It's time to get back to work.
I don't care what you're going to do, but go out there and make something of yourself, for God's sake.
Don't make excuses. Don't blame any other person or any other thing.
So what's your fucking excuse? Life's one big fucking head game. You're losing.
It is a lot in the head, isn't it?
Is it not?
Yep.
I always think about golf. For me.
90% head game.
Or more.
Yep.
That to me is, a huge factor. Because I'm not great at golf. But I also know that I could be way better if I just let my brain do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
We all know how to farm. How often do you question yourself before you make a decision?
Not very. It's usually not on the farming stuff. It's usually something completely off. A timing thing, or I'm pretty confident in my level to farm.
Yeah, we know how to do it. All of our listeners know how to do it. It's all they've ever done. Mm-hmm. So as we think about this, I figured I would bring in a good friend of the podcast, Mr. Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
Don't half-ass it. Don't half-ass it. Boy, that never goes out of style, does it? I mean, think about it. If you're gonna do something, if you've chosen to do something, whatever it is, easy, hard, if you give it your all and you don't half-ass it, win, lose, draw, get what you want, don't get what you want, whatever the outcome is, if you don't half-ass it, at least you're not gonna have to wonder, would the outcome have been different? What if I did give it my all?
Heck yeah. And if you're a true competitor, you don't want the people that you're competing against to half-ass it. Our truck puller guys.
That's true.
The people that show horses or race horses, or I saw it in dog competitions. Like, you want to beat them at their best.
Right.
So whether you're a friend or an enemy, no one should be half-assing.
Well, that's why our listeners should tell more people about us.
That camera's going to have a lot of your head.
It's going to have a lot of me in it. But that is exactly what you're saying, is there's a sense of community that has disappeared. Whether it's digitally caused or it's some other reason, we don't have that sense of community that helps bring up. The whole rising tide raises all ships.
Yeah.
We don't have that philosophy anymore. But it's the same way in your family. Because I know there's a lot of familia conflict. Mm-hmm. I mean, we just talked to Derek Josie, and he's not farming with his brother.
Right.
They could.
Yeah.
But yet we've talked to a lot of operations that do have successful family farms.
Right.
And you try to figure out what the difference is between them. But maybe this could hit home as to, if you don't like what you see, maybe there is possibility for a change.
You could be the one in your family to change the trajectory of your bloodline. I'm the one in my family. I'm the one. And it is important for you to take that pen back that people have written in your book of life and realize there's many other pages that are blank that you could start rewriting how the story goes. But you have to give yourself permission first. Permission to heal. Permission to realize that you're not broken, that you are lovable, you are worthy, that you are capable. You have everything you need. There's not a goddamn thing that someone else has that you don't have.
He's true. He's true on that. Like, what says that you have to be a farmer because everyone else was a farmer in your family? You could go off and be a doctor or a lawyer or maybe do some other trade. It doesn't matter. You can write it off, write your own history.
And what if our listeners are afraid of being judged for that?
F them. Right? Like,
really,
that's
just that simple?
You're judged for whatever you do, good or bad. Right? Like, and if it's something that's going to make you happy, it's better for your family, it's better for your situation, and if they can't get over it, then do they really need to be a part of it?
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, and I don't think Matt Damon does.
One of the most profound things that anybody's ever said to me, when he was 20 years old, we started writing Good Will Hunting, and he said, hey, judge me for how good my good ideas are, not how bad my bad ideas are. And that, to me, is the most important thing when you embark on a collaborative process with somebody. It's like you got to get the window open to throw every idea in there and not be afraid to have ideas, because we all have ideas, and sometimes you need to idea, and then you iterate on that, and then they iterate on that, and then it builds into a good idea, but you have to feel free to express it. That's right, safe, exactly.
That goes right for the podcast because, man, the amount of stuff that we throw at the wall and try to get to stick, there's a lot that doesn't. I would say way more doesn't stick than does. But if we didn't have
100%.
them, we wouldn't get to where we needed to be.
And I just think about this in the frame of the conversations we've had at the Lane Phrase. You know, it's hard in the family farming dynamics to throw out shitty ideas and not have someone get tired of your idea or stop listening or never give you the freedom to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, someone might come up and it might be a completely terrible idea. But you go, you know, what if we did that and switch this around? But, that was just the base of it. That was the root of the idea. And it turned into something that no one would have ever thought of.
Right. I think you're onto something. And here's maybe something we can turn our listeners on to is what traits and characteristics successful people have.
You found out the three most common traits of highly successful people. You remember those?
Yeah, it was, it's so funny. A superiority complex. So the three most common traits of hyper successful people that they looked at, and it was interesting because there's the influencer world wants to be like, you have to wake up at 5 or you have to do cold plunges or whatever the fuck, right? But the thing but there was actually very few that they all had in common. So number one was that they had a superiority complex. They thought they were better than other people and that they deserved more. The second is that they suffered from massive insecurity and feeling that they would never be enough. And third, they had impulse control. And so you've got this combination of people who are like, I want to do this big thing. So this big toward thing. And they've got this big away pain that's like, I'm never going to be enough. I always have to do more. And then they have impulse control that keeps them focused on the goal without seeing the woman in the red dress or getting pursued by her. And that, like, so it's like shoot high, have a big thing that motivates, like have a big tiger behind you and stay on the path.
Not traits that I would have thought.
That's not where I thought it was going when I saved it. But I love that staying focused and have that tiger behind you.
Right. Well, thank God it's not getting up at 5 and doing cold plunges.
I kind of want to do that.
Oh, we did some cold plunges over the weekend. So on that river we floated up in the northeast Iowa, Upper Iowa River, north of Decorah. They have natural springs, and then people will throw up rocks around it. So it's a big tub. Mm-hmm. And that is coming out of the ground 100 feet down, and it is ice cold. See how long you can sit in it.
I would love to try. I would love to try.
It's not so bad when it's like 80 plus degrees out.
That's fair. You can just
But you got to do it even if it's 60. That's the problem.
Yeah. Even correct. It becomes routine.
Yep.
But we want our listeners to know that you're part of a network. You're part of a group. People that we never thought were going to come together 4 years ago when we started this. It's a blessing, and sometimes it feels like a heavy weight, but we want you all to know that you're not alone.
You gotta change that shit, man.
Yeah, but you don't understand my life, dude.
Yeah, I do. I get that mentality. I once had that mentality, that no one understands what the fuck I'm going through. And if you keep that mentality, you're gonna stay in the same exact spot that you're in. You're never alone. Everybody's going through shit. So when people get this mentality of like, you don't understand me, you can throw a fucking rock to someone that can understand you if they're willing to break themselves down and stop hiding. A lot of people understand you. That's why I tell people, a lot of people are going through shit, they just hide better than you did.
Right on. Man, I hate that I got to tell my wife that sometimes. She's type 1 diabetic. Goes to a job that she's really good at, but a lot of days drag her down and complains about this and that. And it's like, hey, you can change that.
Yeah.
Everyone's going through that shit.
It's hard because even when you reflect on it yourself, I mean, you have to give yourself permission to not be okay some days, because that's the only way that you get a little bit better. I know that I've been a victim of that mentality, but you have to be honest with yourself and how you are going to go ahead and move on.
If you want to be the best of the best, if you want to survive no matter what happens, if you want to thrive no matter what happens, you can't second guess yourself. I can't gamble on you if you're not willing to gamble on yourself. I can't trust you unless you trust yourself. You're asking me to be honest with you. When was the last time you were honest with yourself? There's always a reason. If your business is not thriving, there's a reason. If your relationship is not thriving, there's a reason. And you know what the crazy thing is? Everybody in this room knows exactly what that reason is. But you won't have that honest conversation with yourself. But you tell everybody else, be honest with me. Everybody wants somebody to be honest with them until it's time to be honest.
Yeah. I almost just want to let that one sit.
Yeah. That's good.
Because for me, holy shit.
Yep.
I feel like I'm the biggest limiting factor of this podcast.
Why?
Just because of that. You have goals, dreams, other people's ideas, your own ideas, and you don't give yourself permission to go and do it. I don't gamble on myself. I don't gamble. I'm a banker.
Yeah, you don't gamble much.
So to think, let's go jump off the cliff. Like you said, all those things we throw at the wall that get us to where we're going, obviously. But what if we'd have taken off on some of those?
Right.
And that's maybe something I need to do to adjust the way I think about the way business is run, the way farming's run, the way entertainment is run. Like what Mel Robbins is saying.
When you tell your mind what's important to you, there is extraordinary science that proves that your mind has a live and ever-changing filter, a live network that changes how it views the world, what it lets in, what it blocks out. And if you program your mind correctly, and if you're clear about what you want to create, your mind will help you get what you want.
So she's saying the mind, you set your goals, your mind will figure it out?
As long as you give yourself permission to be successful. It's got to be the way you frame things up. When you tell your mind what's important, then that's how you're retraining. Kind of like when we had our conversation with Pastor Ashley about how you reframe what your brain is doing. If you're clear about what you want to create, your mind will help you get what you want.
I like it.
It's better than the alternative, which is complaining
The easiest
and
thing in the
blaming.
world to do is to complain, blame, and quit and settle. That's the easiest thing in the world to do. But it takes real work to deconstruct and to reconstruct the thought process and the mindset of an individual when they're trying to change something. That's why I always say to people, what's more important, what we acquire or who we become?
Complaining and blaming is, unfortunately, a lot that happens in the ag industry and probably all industries. Pretty easy to get complacent and complain or blame why something didn't happen, why I didn't get this raise, why I didn't get that position, why I didn't get this crop, why I didn't get the best price. You know, it's pretty easy to do that.
But where does complaining and blaming usually stem from? Does it stem from comparison?
Yeah, probably. Looking across the fence. Maybe you're just upset with yourself in general or where you're at in life. You know, so it's easier to blame something else for your ailments.
So here's what Joe Rogan has to say about comparing yourself.
This is a really important one because people have this idea that somehow I'm 30 years old, I shouldn't be doing this anymore. I'm 50 years old, I should have learned by now. That's all bullshit. Throw that away. Toss that aside. Like these ideas of numbers that people have in their head that by a certain age you should stop. You are alive. And if you are alive and if you are thinking, all those numbers that you keep attaching, well, you know, when Einstein was 30, shut the fuck up. Stop doing that. That is a waste of your time. And stop saying to yourself, I should be better by now. I'm such a total non-helping thought. What you need to think of is life. You're living, you're alive right now, and if you've made a mistake and you're still continuing to learn and grow, that's all just data.
Yeah. Even if you're not happy and you're alive, you can still change it.
David would say data is just the currency of what you're doing. And who'd have thought that something you did in your past is considered data?
Right. Well, I mean, I think in a recent show, I'm guilty of this, of saying, you know, I know people my age that are making $200,000-$300,000 a year. that, I would have put as a equal. They're in my college class, or we were in the same grade, same.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, same. Same career path type of deal. So, yeah, it's a pretty easy thing to fall into.
It is, and it's fascinating because, for example, the town that I grew up on last weekend celebrated its sesquicentennial, and a lot of class reunions happened, but I didn't go back. Our class didn't have a class reunion. Whether it's people don't want to compare, we don't want to connect, we've lost connection, whatever it is, only a couple of my classmates got together.
They're probably waiting for you to put it together.
They'll be waiting a long time as far as that goes. But it's kind of interesting when you think about that, because ultimately, we'll just play another clip one more time. You can't compare yourself to others.
First thing I think you need to understand is that these people that you're comparing yourself to, you don't really know very well. And what that means is that you see their shiny outside, but you don't see the reality of their life. Maybe you're in California, see someone speeding down the road in a convertible Porsche, and you think, oh man, what a lucky bastard. And the truth of the matter is that he's thinking about wrapping his expensive sports car around the next cement pillar that he comes close to. You can't tell, and people have hard lives, and even people who are comparatively fortunate have hard lives. And so the ideal that you're observing that makes you jealous and resentful is in large part an illusion that's created by your own mind.
And he's good. He is good. Yeah, it kind of goes with social media in a sense of, like I said, I think a couple weeks ago, of like it's neither as good nor as bad as it seems on social media. You think you know someone, but you really don't. These TikTok stars or YouTube stars, like, do we really know them?
And even the amount of time that we get to spend interviewing them on this podcast, we get to know them better.
Yeah.
But that's also not a long time to keep up a front, a shtick,
Yep.
a cover-up, to hide something.
Yep.
But it is. It's true. You don't know who you're comparing yourself to. You know who they are, but you really don't know who they are. How are we doing so far, Corey? Are we keeping you motivated?
Yeah.
Getting you fired up?
This is great. The only thing I'm not seeing is your algorithm must be way different than mine, because you haven't had any like a risque one come through or anything like that.
We don't save those.
Okay.
Well, that's not true. We don't. We don't save those. Yeah, we will. We don't save those. But one of the things that I appreciate about you, Corey, and about Dave is, like I said, so much of the success of this podcast, and I would say so much of the success of just me in my personal life, comes from hanging out with the two of you. And Gary Vaynerchuk says very clearly here that it's a lot about the people that you spend time
You start
around.
hanging out with people that want you to win, you will have more self-confidence. If someone's telling you you're awesome instead of you suck, you're a different person.
That's true. I mean, I also want the people to tell me when I am sucking.
Right. I was going to say, I kind of contradict myself, because you kind of walk in every day and be like, you suck.
God, bankers suck.
God, bankers suck. Yeah. It just cuts so deep. You don't realize that. But being able to put that into perspective with the people that you hang around with goes so far. And I really should have started this song just a little bit sooner. That'd have been a lot better. Because this isn't the actual clip, but
this was on the football playlist.
Yes, it was. But let's go back to Mel Robbins one more time about how decision making can be dangerous and what we can do to better prep ourselves to make good decisions.
95% of our decisions are made by how you feel in the moment. And that is the problem. Do I feel like getting up?
No, you don't.
No. Do you feel like making that cold call? No, you don't. Do you feel like doing that third set of reps? No, you don't. We make decisions based on our feelings, and that is robbing you of joy and opportunity. If you accept the fact that you may never feel ready, and you may never feel motivated, and you may never feel confident, you may never feel courageous, and that's okay, but you can still push yourself forward. As you start to see yourself becoming the person that takes action, guess what happens? You build the skill of confidence and courage.
All I could think about during that was grain marketing. It's emotion. David would say market is emotion.
Yep.
And the emotion of it going up and down and when you sell, and it's all about your feeling.
The two clips that we've had from Mel have really been about training your brain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she was fixing your filter on the first clip. This one, she's saying the same thing, that as you are the person that takes action, your mind and your body begins to think about that. It's a level of confidence. And I will tell you that I have no problem now asking anybody if they want to be interviewed on this podcast.
Right.
And in the beginning, I was scared to death. Am I going to waste their time? Are they going to think this is foolish? Do they really believe in the mission we have going on?
Mm-hmm.
But the more that we did it and the more that you trained your brain to just ask, what's the worst?
Ain't no thing.
They could say no.
Yep. If you don't want to be on the podcast, then fine.
And the other thing, too,
Your loss.
I've noticed about you as we've grown through this is we talk through problems, but we talk through problems trying to find a solution rather than just talking about the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Don't complain. Don't talk negative. That's average people talk normal. Average people talk problems. The greats talk solutions.
We are always trying to find solutions.
We are. I forgot how short that was. I almost didn't have the music queued up. But that's what this show's live. This is for you in celebration of 4 years to put this together. Don't dwell on a problem. Don't dwell on the past. You have to be brave when you think about what you have going on.
You have something to say that you're not saying? If you do, then it's your fault. This is your fault. It's your problem. And you might say, well, I'm too afraid to talk. It's like, fair enough. How afraid are you not to talk? You know, people say to me frequently, they compliment me on my bravery. And I think, you don't understand. I'm not brave. I don't like conflict. I'm way more afraid of losing control of my tongue than I am of the consequences of saying what I have to say. Because I know what happens when we allow other people to control our tongues.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good.
Well, we aren't afraid to talk.
No, we are not. And again, it's the same thing. You should be afraid more of inaction than the actions that you take.
Right. I see this a lot, could be put towards like school board and community type stuff. You need to probably be, raise your voice a little bit and be heard. Because if you're thinking it, there's a lot of others that probably are.
So I think that our listeners have so much power. One, they chose to listen. And I know that we're not that entertaining. So it's not purely for comedic relief. It's not for a great playlist. It's for the value that they want to obtain for their operation. And they may not listen to every show. Mm-hmm. But to hopefully have tools that they can utilize is what we try to push forward. And that's why we're not afraid to talk about. Mm-hmm. We'll take a side, push it around, see if we can get some feedback. But this episode has been intense. And I don't want you listeners to feel like...
We did it in a tent?
We did it in a tent?
We did it intense.
It's been intense. Good Lord. They certainly don't come for our humor. Oh, my God. But I want them to be able to go back and re-listen to it. But I also want them to know that it's okay where you're at. It's okay to want more, but to be happy with where you are. And one of my favorite guys, again, somebody I don't know, can't compare myself to, has a really good way of putting into perspective what I'm trying to say.
I want to get him on the podcast.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you because I know how hard it is to take care of ourselves. That's why I think I was so hard on myself a lot of times, I think, because then at least it puts it on me, which was the only thing that I felt I could try and rely on anyway.
Cool, Theo.
Do I need to play that again?
Sure.
Or do you think our listeners get it?
Play it again.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you because I know how hard it is to take care of ourselves. That's why I think I was so hard on myself a lot of times, I think, because then at least it puts it on me, which was the only thing that I felt I could try and rely on anyway.
It does seem like sometimes you yourself are the only ones that, could be relied on.
Yeah. It happens a lot. It drives my wife nuts how early I want to leave to get to things. But I never want to be the person that somebody's waiting on to show up. But that in replace makes my mind have to think that not everybody's going to be as early as I am.
Like me, rolling in right on time.
But to count that you're going to be there
is
a trait that obviously you've earned.
Not a couple weeks ago.
But it's okay. I'm still proud of you. I'm proud of our listeners.
I was upset with myself that day.
See? You punished yourself more than I did.
I did. I expected better out of myself.
But I think our listeners do that themselves as well. So the last clip that I have here is just kind of a feel-good one to send off, and then maybe we'll close it out with some of our own comments. But let's see here. One more message from the great Joe Rogan.
Be the person who steps forward, starts it off, makes an action, tell someone how much you care and appreciate them. You can do that. We can all do that. And we've all had it done to us, and it feels amazing. When someone comes up to you out of nowhere and goes, hey, man, I just want to tell you, I really appreciate you. I know sometimes we don't talk to each other that much, but when I do, I really enjoy it.
I like that. Got a lot of good friends that don't keep up with as much anymore, but, when you get a chance to, try to let them know, hey, dude, I do appreciate you. Like, I know life's taking us down different paths. We got families now, different priorities. But it is nice to catch up and let them know that you appreciate them.
I'm terrible about this. I'm not any good at it, and that's one of my goals is to get better at it. Because I had a classmate, a buddy of mine that I hung out with a lot in high school, a little bit in college, and he called just to say how much the podcast meant to him.
Yeah.
And that was, I'm talking about it now. It's been 6 months since that phone call.
Yeah.
But it really, really hits home. So as you think about what we just did here, Corey, 50 minutes of pure motivation. Is it what you thought it was going to be?
I didn't know what it was going to be. Honestly, I walked in knowing it was just going to be us two, and you were going to play some clips, and I didn't even know it was going to be motivational or what it was going to be. So, but that's how I like coming into this, is a little bit blind for something like this. So I thought it was great.
So think about a challenge. I'm going to hit kind of some summaries here. Small differences. Set bigger goals than you imagine, so that way you have a higher trajectory to hit the ones you actually are planning on hitting. Remember, the road to success is going to feel a little bit painful, but as long as you take responsibility for being better than average, you will get to those goals. Don't be afraid to work hard in little pieces. Don't burn yourself out, because it's a long road to those big goals themselves. You need to be patient and develop a love for the journey along the way, because that's the only thing that's really going to get you there. Along the way, though, you got to watch out for those that are trying to squash your dreams, which ultimately makes you the driver of who you surround yourself with in your circle. Because our costs are not changing the friend group, not changing your advisors, not changing the way you do things, but you're the one that's in control of your story. As long as you put in the effort, you can be the one that changes the bloodline, the generation that switches where you're going. Accept motivation. Use what those successful people around you are using and rely on them for support, but also understand that a lot of people understand what you're going through. So you can rely on them. As long as you're honest with yourself, that will give you more power to retrain your brain to create what you want to. Don't be a victim. Don't compare yourself to others. Surround yourself with the good people that will push you forward. Make decisions not by how you feel, but by what you know. And if you made a bad decision, don't dwell on it. Have the ability to realize that it was your fault, your problem. It's not a big issue. We can fix it and move on. But ultimately, you all are successful for being listeners of this podcast. We are proud of you, and we thank you so much for making us who we are. And we kind of wanted to do this as a little bit of a tribute to who you are.
Right. That's good. I was going to challenge, and it was going to be, I started writing things down, and it was going to basically be a summary of what we did. Because that's the easy thing to do, because all of these are good. So if you could summarize them all, that's what my challenge was going to be. But I wrote down balance. We always talk about work-life balance. That's not work-life balance. It's life balance, right? It's spending time with your family, it's working, it's enjoying what you're doing, it's working towards goals. It's everything. It's not just about work life. It's life balance. And so make sure you're constantly moving forward. Try not to stay stagnant. Set goals so you're not where you're at in 5 years if you don't want to be there. If you want to be there, then by all means, keep doing what you're doing.
I love it. This has been a fun show, listeners. If you liked it, let us know. If you didn't, let us know. Because ultimately we did this for you, kind of as a thank you. So, Corey, I think it's time to let him go.
All right.
Until next time, have a good one.